Welcome to another Top Agent Nation Commercial Wednesday. We're really excited to again talk. It's not what you make, it's what you save. But also, as everyone knows, many real estate agents, commercial agents are entrepreneurs. And what we want to show people is why you do need to create a LLC corporation, put a bubble around so you can write off as much expenses. But the other thing is to really build up your corporate credit, what you can do with that corporate credit. And as many real estate investors, we say, put your property in LLC. So very excited to share and teach and let people know, what you can actually do and how to achieve this goal. So we have Donovan from Prime as one of our guests today, and we'd love for him to share, a little bit about himself, Prime, and kind of get into the presentation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, James, and the community. Super excited to be here. I can talk for hours and hours on this stuff because it's something that's part of my foundation and growth of an entrepreneur as well. And I've been able to help tens of thousands of people understand the importance of doing things right the first time. And it's saying my screen sharing is disabled. Do you mind with that helping me with that, James? Perfect. All right. So we want to build a proper foundation, and I always like to reference the simple stuff, right? It's building your rocks, building your house on the rocks and not the sand. Don't build something that's not sustainable for long-term growth. What I also want to make sure I encourage you guys with is doing things right and not cutting corners. Right? Cutting corners can put you in a position where, yeah, you might be able to put yourself in a good tax savings position, but if we look for the longevity of protection, tax benefits, and protecting your estate, things could be a little bit different. And so, what I want to explain today is a lot of the conceptual things that we go over to help you guys build a proper foundation, legal separation, financial separation, maximizing on taxes, and last but not least, protecting what you build, the legacy that you're leaving behind more than anything. So, as James said, our motto here at Prime Corporate Services is it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And just to explain that a little bit more, I've seen people that make $1 million and pay $500,000 in taxes. I've seen people that make $1 million and pay $150,000 in taxes. And it's all about the strategies and the implementation and working with a good team. And that's what Prime wants to provide for each and every one of you guys. Help you understand how to plan, profit, and protect your business. So who is Prime? We're a company that's been around for over 15 years to educate business owners on the proper way to get their formation structured, the best way to maximize from tax benefits. We've also been able to help our clients with something that's critical to the success of a business, which is financial separation, right? What does that mean? That means getting the business to walk and fund on its own 2 feet, get you away from being the bank so that we're not jeopardizing our personal situation. And when the time does come to grow and expand and scale our business, we have the opportunities to do that. And it's all going to come from having, again, a proper foundation. So, a little bit about me. Who am I? Why am I here? I'm the director of Prime Corporate Services. Been here for close to a decade now. And I grew up as an entrepreneur with a dad that was a general contractor. So, I've worked in the real estate field for a long period of time. I've done construction, I've worked with my hands. And as I became an investor and started realizing, look, there's a lot of limited information. You can go to 5 different attorneys, you can go to 10 different attorneys, and they'll give you all different responses on what they think should be beneficial to your structuring. However, what happens from there is then we go to our tax professional and we say, hey, this is what our tax professional told us, but it goes against why we're structuring this way. So Prime said, look, we're going to do everything cohesive. We're going to put it all together. We're going to make sure our legal team can talk to our tax team to make sure you are on track for the most tax savings possible long term. So today, what we're going to talk about here is going to come down to different entity types. All right. We're also going to talk about asset protection and what that looks like from a holding company to a subsidiary structure. I want to help educate you guys on the different layers of protection that you can have. We'll breeze over financial separation, why it's important, why it's going to allow you to track and record a lot more efficiently. We're going to talk about tax savings and strategies. I want to encourage every single one here to leverage different tax strategies that could help you save 40 plus $1,000 in taxes based off just simple strategies. And then last but not least, if we have the time, go over some legacy planning, estate planning, things like that. So what I want to introduce you guys to is the liability structure versus the limited liability structure. Okay. A liability structure is what we typically do when we get into business. We say, hey, I got started. I'm running a business. I'm just going to do it all under my personal name. You guys, that's extremely risky. And the reason why I say that is because if anything happens with that business, an employee makes a mistake, you make a mistake, car accident happens while you're on the clock, we are fully liable as the business owner, meaning that if the business goes down, we're going down with it. Our financial situation's tied to the business, our personal assets are tied to the business. We are the collateral of the company. That can be a very uncomforting situation to be a part of. And so, what I encourage everybody to do is set up with a formal business structure, whether it's an LLC or a corporation based off the needs of you as the individual. That's what we at Prime Corporate Services help you talk through. Now, I will say the main focus that we're going to have today is going to really be in regards to the LLC portion, the limited liability company. And the reason why is because it's the most utilized business structure at this time. And it can also be taxed multiple different ways. So you can tax an LLC as an S corp. You can tax an LLC as a partnership. You can tax an LLC as a C corp. So there's different ways that we can tax it based off the circumstances that we want at the end of the day. So what do you need in setting up a business structure, right? We need to make sure that you guys have the business legally formed. Two key words that I want to give you here today that are very important with the new tax code changes is legal intent and profit motive, right? Legal intent means the government now wants to make sure that you've legitimized your business to make sure that you're able to maximize on your different deductions. Here's a key pointer. If you guys run a business as a sole proprietor, you are the business, you have a 300% more likely chance of being audited rather than just setting up the LLC and knowing that you significantly reduce your risk of audit by 300% because the government knows what type and what sector of business you're running. So we want to register with the state. We want to pick an NAICS code of what that is. And we want to appoint a registered agent, right? We want to set up the LLC and get the articles of organization, but they're going to ask you, whose address do we want to use? When you're talking to Prime, we care about privacy more than anything. I want to make it the most difficult way possible for somebody to do a shakedown lawsuit for you. Hey, I slipped and fell on your property. I just want to sue you. You got 5 properties. You got 4 businesses. I want to do because I see you got some money, right? That's not a fun experience. They call that a shakedown lawsuit where somebody's just trying to settle for 30, 40, 50, 100 grand, get in, get out, gone. So we want to appoint a registered agent so we can keep you private. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this here in a bit. We want to have an operating agreement. Okay, an operating agreement, think of it as the glue to the business, right? If we're building a house, it's the nails, it's the anchors, it's the brackets, it's the Tico nails, everything that's holding everything together for the structure. Your operating agreement is like that for your business, right? It's a legal binding document that's like the lifeline of the company. It's going to show ownership percentages. It's going to show profits, distribution, or how the business is supposed to profit, cash basis, accrual basis, rules, provisions, regulations, membership and ownership percentages. And the most important piece, how the profits are distributed back to you as the business owner, right? Everybody wants to know how they're going to get paid. So the operating agreement's a good legal document to specify and outline everything for the business. It's also the most important piece because it's what creates the asset protection. Okay, we call this the corporate veil. We want to make sure that every business has an operating agreement. In addition to that, we want to make sure every business has an EIN number, an employer identification number, so the IRS can recognize you as a business rather than as an individual using their social security number. And we also want to make sure that you open up a separate business checking account. Every business needs to make sure that they're separated from a financial standpoint. We don't want to commit the cardinal sin of commingling, which means that the business can come back and affect multiple businesses based off the nature of our commingling. So we want to be very cautious. And most of the businesses that get structured are what we call member managed businesses. What does that mean? That means you are the member and you manage the company at the same time. So oftentimes when you're first getting started, this is the best way to go. Now, for those of us that are in the investor world and we're doing what we can to not cut corners and create privacy and protection, we have what's called a holding company. Okay, a holding company is a non-operational business, meaning it's not meant to do anything day to day at all. There's three main purposes that we want: privacy, protection, and tax benefits. Right? Privacy, because again, I want to make sure that if somebody looks up my name on the Secretary of State website, they can't find it. That's going to make it more difficult for them to see how many businesses I have, how many properties I have, right? I want to keep an honest person honest. It doesn't mean that I can't make a mistake that's lawsuit worthy, but I'm stopping the person that's just like, oh, I tripped and fell. I see that they have money. Hey, lawyer, it's 5 grand to pay you. You get me 50 back. It's a win-win across the board. That's what I want to stop. I want protection. I want to make it the most difficult route possible for them to pierce the corporate veil and come after your personal assets. If we have a company in one of these haven states for protection, they are going to limit the ability of somebody piercing the veils, right? So that what I mean by this is piercing this veil, coming up to this business and suing you personally. How do you sue a business that hasn't done any day-to-day operations? It's pretty difficult to do, right? So this holding company is a placeholder that is going to own these additional businesses underneath. These are called subsidiaries. Okay. So holding company, subsidiary businesses. Now, over here, you're going to see four corporate haven states: Delaware, Nevada, Alaska, and Wyoming, right? Delaware was the original corporate haven state. Nevada took a lot of the business acts that Delaware did and created some of their own and made a phenomenal privacy and protection state for a long period of time. Alaska is a forgotten state. I will say about 7 years ago, we used Alaska quite a bit to structure, but we then decided Wyoming overall just beats the bunch. The reason why: Wyoming adopted all of Delaware's business acts. Wyoming said we're going to have no income tax. Wyoming said we're not going to have a franchise tax. We're going to be cheap to set up and we're going to be cheap to renew on a year-to-year basis. It's a win across the board for everybody. If you're a single member LLC or a partnership, structuring in Wyoming could be one of the best things that you could do to create the privacy and protection. So if I go to Wyoming and I look up at Wyoming Secretary of State website who the owner of the business is, they're going to find the organizer, which is Prime Corporate Services, not you, which is what we want. Protection. We're creating dual layers of protection. So if they sue this business, they have to go through this business before they can come to your personal assets. So we're creating layers or roadblocks of protection to make sure that you are protecting your real estate, your biggest asset, your other businesses that are generating cash flow, so on and so forth. So this is what it looks like overall, right? We can build out as many businesses underneath this holding company that we want to make sure that we're protected. We can have a real estate company. We could have a management company. If you're an agent and you want to have an agency as well, you could run an agency under here and build out your network and your business from there, right? Everything can be underneath this holding company just to give better layers of protection for your investments long term. Now, I talked about something a little bit earlier. We covered the financial separation, right? How to create asset protection, keep it simple, but keep it sturdy, right? How we want to bend, but we don't want to break. How we can break is by not managing our business credit profile correctly. So when you're an individual, you have a FICO credit profile, personal credit score, personal credit history. Everything's tied up to give you a credit score from 300 to 850. Your Paydex is your business's credit profile score. Okay, so a lot of you guys probably have never heard this before. Most likely it's because the banks don't want you to know about it. If you go to Chase and say, hey, I need a credit card, Chase says, yeah, we can give you one, no harm, no foul. What do they report to though? You could go to Bank of America or US Bank or Wells Fargo. What reporting agency do they report to? So your Paydex credit profile is from the institution Dun& Bradstreet. Okay, Dun & Bradstreet's the world's biggest reporting agency on business credit. And what they do is they give you a Paydex credit score. They also give you what's called a DUNS number. DUNS number. It's a 9-digit code that the institutions can look you up under to see how credible you are. What's your Paydex credit score number? And so, what most business owners do, and I've been guilty of this myself, and that's why I try to educate people to do this the right way, is Donovan starts a business. I invest my money into this business to get it started. I give it 10 grand. I give it then 5 grand. I give it another 5 grand because I want to get this business up and running. I believe I have confidence in the mentors, the education, my knowledge, my work ethic, and everything else to get this business up and off the ground. What happens though is this business then starts taking action. It starts making money. And then we say, well, my business has taken so much money from me. I'm going to use my business now to pay my grocery bills, to pay my college tuition, to pay my car note, to pay for daycare. Now we've pierced the corporate veil. We have now pretty much opened up a line directly to us personally for them to say, hey, if you make a mistake and something happens and we go to court, the courts say, hey, we need your financial documents. Holy cow, you haven't even been financially separated from your business. You're at fault. And that's what we want to prevent. And so by creating a business credit profile with Dun & Bradstreet, with Equifax business and Experian business are some of the 3 best things that you can do to create financial separation and not pierce your corporate veil. So our team helps you build a Dun & Bradstreet Paydex credit profile score. And how does that work, right? What is a Paydex credit score? So a Paydex credit score ranges from 1 to 100. All right. We want to help you obtain a 75 to 85. All right. So a 75 to 85 is the similarity of you having a 780 or higher with your personal FICO. All right. So what we want to do is we want to expedite the process. Typically with our team, we can get you to an excellent rating on your Paydex credit profile in about 3 to 6 months. Okay. There's some reporting that needs to be done, some trade lines that need to be accomplished. It's a game that Dun & Bradstreet has created. We know how to play the game. So we have advisors that educate you on the proper steps and when you should do it and how many trade lines you should have and who reports to your Dun & Bradstreet number, et cetera. Right? We want to get you guys to an excellent rating so that your business can now be recognized as self-sufficient, organically funding, utilizing corporate funds and business lines of credit, and limit your personal financial liability to the business. Get away from being the bank. I promise you'll feel 10 times better. One thing I can say in 10 years of doing this and educating business owners, I've never heard somebody come back and say, hey, Donovan, having too much money for my business was a bad thing. It hurt me more than it helped me. It will help you with marketing. It will help you with employee expenses. It will help you with, customer engagement off the type of material that you want to create, operational expenses, CRM systems, so on and so forth. So I really want to make sure that you guys understand the importance of this. Now, 2 key nuggets I'll give you. Your Paydex credit profile score has no utilization factor. So if you tap out your business credit profile with 100% of debt load, it does not affect your personal score and it doesn't affect your business's credit score. You can get additional lines of capital, no problem at all, because banks and lenders understand businesses have a constant cycle of cash flow that they go through, a constant influx cycle of cash flow. So they're saying, look, as long as you're good, you pay your bills back, you pay your borrowers back, we're willing to help. And that's what we want. The other thing that I want to point out is that your business credit can grow faster than your personal credit can grow. So we can essentially expedite the process so we can get to a position where we're building it in a great way, allowing you to have additional capital and funds so you can breathe easy at night. You can have the confidence knowing I have my ducks in a row and everything's completed the way I need it to be completed. Why do I care about business credit so much? 2 different reasons. You're going to have a plethora of different expenses as a business owner. You might know it, not know it yet. However, as you start going, you're going to realize, holy cow, I need to purchase this, or I need this software, I need this AI platform, or I need another AI platform, or I need an employee to be paid for, or I need my parking passes, or I need my furniture for my office, or I need repair and maintenances on my building, or I need to do a big marketing campaign, or I have dues and subscriptions. You guys, as a business owner, there's going to be a bunch of different things that come up. And one of the things that people do is they mix all of their expenses with business and personal. And then when tax season comes, we call it tax anxiety. I'm sitting there like, holy cow, I have to go back through 12 months of different deductions and I put them on personal and business. Was that a business expense at Target? Did I purchase office supplies or was that me going grocery shopping for my kids and for their school supplies? So now we have these questions that go back and forth, and then we make our job difficult to get ready for tax season. And so if we can start building business credit to start putting all of the investments that we put on our personal credit or on our business credit profile in one area, well, when tax season comes, you don't have the anxiety. It's like, hey, I used my business credit, I built it the proper way. Now I just go through month by month, categorize my statements, and just so you know, a lot of business credit card platforms have like a category section on there that you can actually just go break out into and look. Now you can categorize things properly. You can send it over to your CPA, your tax professional, or use an Excel spreadsheet to track and record it. And it's super easy and efficient for you as the business owner. So not only does it help you protect your corporate veil, it also gives you the ability to financially separate and keep the business away from you from a financial standpoint. Now, a key tip here, I want to talk about this pro tip, okay, the qualified business income deduction. So this is huge and it's on net income. So let's say that I gross $130,000. Okay, that's gross income, not net. So that's without expenses. I go spend $30,000 on marketing, advertising, travel costs, my licensing, permitting, and fees, and maybe some other stuff, a CRM system. Well, I bring that income down to net income of 100 grand. The government says if it's an active source of income, they will give us another 20% QBI deduction, which means that any business that has a pass-through structure can take an additional 20% off of that 100K. So instead of paying tax on 100, you pay tax on 80, 20,000 untaxed back in your pocket to reinvest back into your business. This is massive for you guys to grow and scale the company the way you want. Now, another one that the government gives us as a new business owner is what we call startup provisions. Okay, startup provisions are the costs incurred during the creation and formation of the company. For a lot of you guys that are new to this right now, you're investing in mentorship, education, marketing, maybe employee expenses, CRM systems. The government says, hey, look, we know that these are needed for you to get your business up and off the ground. If you invest in a reasonable time frame and connect the investments to a legal structure to show legal intent, we covered this a little bit earlier, they will allow those investments to be 100% tax deductible as a legal business startup expense. We get to write it off dollar for dollar against your other sources of taxable income. That's massive. The government gives you up to $100,000, 50,000 startup, 50,000 organizational. So now there's limitations and things of that nature. That's why working with a good tax professional is huge. If we spend 100 grand, the government will allow us to capture some of it in year one and amortize some of it over the next 15 years if we need. Maybe we make money, maybe we struggle in the first year. It's okay because the government also has what's called pass-through taxation, which means even if your business doesn't make a dollar in year one and you spend 10 grand, we can use the startup provisions to pass that $10,000 back to your W-2 source of income to reduce that tax liability so you pay less or get a return because the government took too much. This is a massive impact to you as a startup company. We also have the Augusta rule, right? I can see here that some of you guys are in your home office, rightfully so. Most people will take the home office deduction and think, hey, I'm getting a good portion written off against my taxes. I'm happy with that. But what if I said that you could 100x that? And what do I mean by that? So the Augusta rule is a way that I can rent my personal house to my business for up to 14 days out of the year. And it doesn't count as a taxable event for me as the individual. It's a free paycheck. And it counts as an expense for my business. So to give you guys a quick rundown here of this one, just a brief snippet, I use this every single year. I live by a place that's called Park City. If you guys know of it, it's a big tourist attraction. We lost Sundance, unfortunately, but it's expensive to be up there. I'm in a 50-mile radius of it. So what happens is I say, hey, I call some resorts up there. They'll tell me, Donovan, it's about $1,500 a night to stay at the resort. I say, perfect. That's all I needed to know. So now I charge my house $1,500 a night for 14 days out of the year to my business. That is a $21,000 write-off I get to take on a year-by-year basis to reduce my taxable income. This is impactful. This is helping you significantly reinvest back into your business as an agent, as an investor. $21,000 could be an investment for a down payment for a house in the Midwest, right? What can we do with these tax savings that allow us to snowball our portfolio so it grows and grows and grows, and we go from the $500,000 net worth to the $1.5 million net worth to the 2 to the 5 to the 10 to the 15 to the 20. There's another one I'll talk about here in just a quick second that's also very beneficial as well, and that's a cost segregation study. So a cost segregation study is a study that you can have somebody run that accelerates the depreciation of the property. If you guys aren't familiar, the one big beautiful bill came back into play in 2025 and restored 100% bonus depreciation. So what does that look like for you? I'm going to give a quick example of how this can be beneficial. So let's say, for example, I have a $500,000 asset and I use straight line depreciation over 27.5 years. This is what most investors will do. If I divide that $500,000 by 27.5 years, that brings it down to $18,200 a year that I get to depreciate. However, if I use bonus depreciation, the government says you can potentially utilize up to 30% in year one and front load it. So if I have a $500,000 asset times 30% of the cost segregation study and bonus depreciation, that's $150,000 that I can use against my taxable income. Now, you guys, there are some requirements. There has to be 100 hours more than anybody else working on the property. There needs to be 500 material participation hours potentially, or you need to be considered a real estate professional. If you have a broker's license, a real estate broker's license, you immediately qualify. Next thing you know, this changes your whole life taxable situation because now the government says, hey, we're legally allowing you. You make 300 grand, you have $150,000 write-off, you pay tax on 150 instead of paying tax on 280. Right? So there's some benefits here that are really going to help you guys leverage things correctly. And again, allow you to snowball your portfolio so we can grow it at an exponential rate. Right? If I save $80,000 in taxes off of that, well, maybe that's 2 homes that I go buy to then do another cost segregation study to next year I essentially get a $90,000 or $100,000 return to go invest in 3 properties. If you see where I'm going with this, you can start recognizing how this can snowball so quickly and allow you to grow as an investor. The next one is hiring your kids through the business, right? So the government says that you can actually hire your kids. Now, in this field of work, I oftentimes get asked, like, hey, what would I pay my kids to do as an agent? You ever heard that thing called social media? You might not be the best at it. You might struggle with it. However, your kids live in it. And you could say, hey, do you want to be the marketer for my team? Do you want to create my online Instagram profile so people can see me and I can create content? We can get it out there so we can gain more traction. So legally, as long as I pay my kids as a 1099, I cannot pay them as a W-2. As a 1099 employee, as long as they're under 17 and a half, I can pay them up to $16,100 for this year. It goes up every single year. And it's a tax write-off for my business, and it's a non-taxable event for my children. Now, if I really want to get creative, I could now put that money in a Roth 401k. I could put that money in a 529B plan. I could put that money in a life insurance policy. I could do some pretty cool stuff to give them a leg up in life as well. And so these are the things I want you guys to be thinking about, because if you have kids, how do we utilize that? If you have a house, how do you rent it to your business? If we have startup costs of a company, how do we maximize that so we're benefiting in the first year of our business? So talk through these. Obviously, you guys want to track and record, right? These are simple strategies, but effective strategies. And we still need to track and record. We still have to say what the kid's job is. We still need to say what our material participation hours were for a cost segregation study, things like that, right? But more than anything, you want to use a competent CPA. You want a CPA to know how to file businesses taxes. You don't want to sit down with a CPA that's been specialized in filing personal taxes for the last 30 years. It's not going to help you with a lot of these tactics and approaches. You want to make sure that they're familiar with tax strategies for investors. Real estate, if you're in real estate, or if you're in other areas, heavy machinery, or you know, cost segregation studies, et cetera. And you want them to strategize with you. If you sit down with your tax professional and say, "Hey, I'm in all these educational programs. They've been teaching me how to maximize my taxes. I want to pay my kids. I want to use the Augusta rule." And they say, "Yeah, you can't do that." You're probably in the wrong spot. You want to find somebody that says, "Yeah, we can do that. How are we going to work with your situation to put you in a better position so you keep more money in your pocket? We're working for you, not for the IRS." That's the type of conversation that we want to have with our tax professional. Now, just a few more minutes here, and then we'll open it up for Q&A and allow some questions to be asked, and I'll answer some of those questions to give you guys some more understanding here. But the last thing I want to talk about real briefly is protecting the estate. You guys, we have a thing called probate in our country, which is very grueling, let's just say. It's a long process. It can be very overwhelming. It's not fun. And one of the things that happens is probate is the court ordered process of the courts coming in and saying, you didn't have your ducks in a row. You didn't have all of your estate covered. So now what we're going to do is freeze the estate. Your family has no access to it. And then we are essentially going to open it up to creditors to come after it and say, "Hey, you are owed money. You are owed money. You are owed money. What assets can we sell to pay the money back to you so you can walk away from the circumstance?" Well, your family is essentially out of the estate. They can't do anything until the court says, "Hey, this is all finished with probate. Whatever's left over, your family can contest." Right? So, how long does probate take? A simple estate, 6 to 9 months. A complex estate can take 1 to 2+ years. I've seen some probates last for 6 years because they're very complex with partnerships, multiple real estate properties tied together with partnerships and things of that nature. And so sometimes this can be a long, grueling process, and it's obviously a pain. It can cost a lot, right? Probate's not cheap. It can cost a lot of money to get into probate, and it can cost a lot of money to hire an attorney to help us through probate. So a small estate can be upwards of $5,000 to probate. A medium estate around $1 million can be upwards of 15 grand. A larger complex estate can be $50,000 or more. If you live in a state like California, when I heard this, I was amazed at the cost. A $500,000 estate in California takes about 25 to $35,000 of capital to probate and fight. That's a lot of money for a family that's just trying to inherit the assets that you're leaving behind. And so we don't want to do that. We want to put our family in the best position possible. And the way that we do that is with an estate plan. Whether you have a business or you're just starting or you have a successful business, we want to make sure it doesn't matter about age, it doesn't matter about income level. It's about making sure that your family has more than you were left with at your stage. So the first thing that we like to focus on is a will. Okay, a will is a public document. A lot of people have wills. However, a will does not avoid probate. So if you have a will, what the purpose is it's a blueprint of your life. It's going to show your cars, your homes, your assets, your bank accounts, your checking accounts, and who the beneficiaries and who the administrators are. Right? Who's going to get those assets if I pass away? Who's next in line to inherit them? So the will is just a guideline. It's essentially a book that it's a legal document that's going to list Aunt Betsy's going to get the house, my son's going to get the business, my daughters are going to get the jewelry and the bullion and the crypto and all that stuff, right? I get to delegate who I want my beneficiaries of my assets to be. If you have kids under 20, if you have kids under 18 years old, it's the only legal document that gives you guardianship for your kids. I don't want to go through probate and my kids go to, probate court and then get divvied up to, CPA or foster care or something like that. I don't want that to happen to my kids. I know who I would want to raise them. So I want to specify in my will, if something happens to me and my spouse, my son and my daughter go here or they go here. Whatever the case is, at least we have our ducks in a row. The way that we avoid probate is with a trust. All right. A trust is a private instrument. So nobody can look at your trust. If you have a trust, you avoid probate. Okay, this is the key piece here. If you have a trust, you avoid probate. There is no probate proceedings whatsoever. So a trust is beneficial because it's going to list provisions. How are the profits of the trust going to get distributed to your people? It also is going to allow your family to avoid death and inheritance taxes. So instead of inheriting an estate and being told, yeah, you inherited it, but now you owe $300,000 in taxes off of this $1.5 million estate, you're like, whoa, what just happened here? I don't want that. I can't pay that. Your family can now inherit those assets and figure out what are we going to do with it? Are we going to try to cash flow these assets? Are we going to sell these assets? What are we going to do? It also allows for what's called step up basis. So let's say, for example, you have $1 million home when you purchased it. And when you pass away, that home is worth $2 million. The government says, hey, by the way, what we're going to do is we are going to allow everything to be capital gains tax free. Your family doesn't need to pay step up basis on any of this. So we're good to go. All right. So a trust is very important to make sure that we avoid probate and avoid death and inheritance taxes. The living will is pretty straightforward. It's your healthcare directive. So it's just essentially going to be your living will. It's going to be your live or die desires. Do you want resuscitation? Do you not want resuscitation? Do you want transfusions? Do you want medical help? Do you want hospice? Do you want organ donation? What do you want? So the living will is essentially something that you file with your medical provider to help you through the circumstances if you can't talk or you're unconscious. And the power of attorney is very important as well because we have medical and fiduciary. Medical power of attorney allows us to have a HIPAA waiver. Okay, it's a medical release form that I essentially, if I'm married, would give to my spouse, or if I'm single, maybe give to my mom or my dad or my sister or my brother or my family members or a friend. To say, if something happens to me, I'm giving you the medical authority to give advice on my behalf, to open up my medical records, to get my prescriptions, to help me if I'm unconscious, give direction to the doctors, etc. If you're married, I know it sounds crazy. You're probably thinking I can give medical advice. We're married. Unfortunately, you still have to have a HIPAA waiver. And the last piece of the puzzle here is going to be the power of attorney for fiduciary use. Something happens to you, who's going to pay your bills? Who's going to pay your taxes? Who's going to make sure the distributions of the trust are taken care of to pay out your family? Who's stepping in to make sure that your financial situation's accommodated so your family isn't struggling with these hard times? They're not losing capital or not knowing how to run a business. You have a selected and appointed individual to come in and help your family learn to get them on track so that they can step away and your family can still be successful. Take over everything that you gave them and go either figure out how to run a bigger business and create a bigger legacy, or maybe they say, hey, we just want to live off this and enjoy life a little bit more as dad and mom instructed us to do. Who knows? So last but not least, then we can open up for question and answers. This is what the overall structure looks like as we build it out. So we have our businesses down here that we set up as our subsidiaries, right? These are our operational businesses. This is the day-to-day transactional companies. We have our holding company over the top to make sure we create that privacy and that protection. If I have a holding company and somebody looks up one of these businesses, they're going to see my holding company. Again, keeping my personal name private, keeping my personal address private. I'm the member of my business. I own it. My trust is a beneficial owner. Okay. The holding company, if we build out a holding company and we build every subsidiary under it, if I pass away, my trust being a beneficial owner in my holding company allows me to avoid probate on all businesses. I don't need to connect my trust to every single individual business. I just connect it to my holding company, and everything my holding company owns is protected. And then last but not least here, your personal home and your personal assets go to your business banking account. Okay. So that is huge. We want personal assets to go to our trust. We want cash flowing assets, investments to go to LLCs. So that is everything I have for you guys today. I know it's a quick, a quick overview of what we do here at Prime and some of the direction that we can point you in and some of the help and education. I do want everybody to know here, because of the relationship that we have with the team, we actually have a free consultation that we're providing for everybody. If you're interested and you want to know a little bit more, or maybe dive into your personal circumstances of what's best for you, what route should you go, what recommendations are you looking for, we'd be happy to meet with you and talk about these different component pieces and how we can assist. Right? There's no obligation. Again, it's a free 1 hour business strategy consultation for you all. If you guys want to talk about taxes because you already have your structure, you can let us know on that call as well. But we're here to help and just continuously provide value to the community. So if you guys have any questions about that, please feel free to ask. But if there's any raise of hands or any questions that you guys want to throw in the chat right now, I am more than happy to answer and help out any way I can.
Any questions for Donovan? Donovan, thank you for this. I know this is a subject that people don't really like to talk about or go into, but it is necessary. I'm going through this with our family right now that we had to put everything in LLCs, trusts, wills, everything, and it's important. So I do see Max has a question. Max.
Yeah, Donovan, good. Thank you very much. Listen, I never did file anything with Dun and Bradstreet, yet I get emails saying that my scores are 750 and they offer me financing, loans and all that. How is that possible?
So how they're saying that you have a 750 is interesting. Just so you're aware, some of the other credit profiles like Experian and Equifax actually have a higher credit score rating. Dun and Bradstreet specifically is 1 to 100. However, if you have been in business for a long period of time, you could have worked with a reporting agency that actually just reported your profile to Dun and Bradstreet and given you a credit score. So this happens from time to time. It's not something that's consistently happening. Excuse me, not something that's consistently happening, but it can happen if you ended up getting cards that you never knew reported to your Dun and Bradstreet number and helped your Paydex credit score. So it is possible. It's actually happened to one of my businesses. I had never applied for one, and I actually went to go apply, and they said you already had it and had a credit score for it as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, Donovan, can you talk about this? Because I think one of the big thing is we know everyone should set up a corporation, LLC, the estate structure, right, for your family and your business partner, right? Key man, I did that before in our business to protect everyone. But as you have the LLC, can you go a little about building the corporate credit versus your personal? Because I do believe everyone should kind of have that both. You keep your personal, and then you keep your corporate, and that obviously is much bigger. As I shared earlier, I had some corporate credit in the millions that we could use, right, for equipment and everything, depending on cash flow and everything else. Can you share the difference, and how do you kind of build it, and kind of why do you want a DNB and other ways to verify your corporation?
Absolutely. So we essentially break it down into a four-step process here, right? And so the first step of the process is establishing your DNB number. So this can take about 30 days with Dun and Bradstreet. So you go apply, you put in all your information for your business, et cetera. Dun and Bradstreet takes about 30 days to respond and say, hey, here's your Paydex credit profile score. Now, they run it through an algorithm. And when you're first building your Paydex credit profile score, they look at you, the individual first, right? Banks have to do that. They can't just say, hey, guess what? You started a business. Here's 100 grand. Best of luck. I hope you pay us back. They can't do that. They look at it and say, oh, you pay your bills back. You pay your creditors back. You do phenomenal with your utilization. Because of that, we're going to put this in this algorithm. And oh, wow, you start with a 60 Paydex score, right? So everybody's going to be different. It's not like there's a set standard where you start your Dun and Bradstreet and you have a 1 and we grow it to 75 to 85. So that's the first part I want everybody to know is that initially when you're starting your business credit profile, they look at you. The better you are with your FICO, the more expeditiously we can build the credit profile for the business. Now, after that, we go into building the credit profile. So number one's establish. Number two is build. We want to build it over the next 3 to 6 months by utilizing trade lines. Okay, what's a trade line? A trade line is working with Uline or Granger or Office Darner or these companies that Dun and Bradstreet selectively pick that say, hey, in order for you to build your score, you have to use some of these different companies that report to us for the score to be built. So we typically recommend about 10 trade lines. Okay. And so we educate you and we do market research to figure out what trade lines still report and what maybe drop off. So we guide you through that process of what trade lines up to 10 to build that credit profile to a 75 to 85 rating. After we do that, we then want to shift debt load. We've now invested some money on our personal credit And we want to now have the opportunity of figuring out what lines of credit can we get that have balance transfer options. Maybe I can get a gas card. Instead of spending gas on my personal card, I put gas on my business credit card to build my score. Maybe I get a US bank credit card so I can now utilize the limits that I have there instead of using my personal limits. And all this is going to do is just start showing utilization with that profile. Just like on your personal side, you had to show utilization to build the score. It's no different with your Paydex. We have to show utilization. We have to show balances. We have to show paid off limits to build that score. Now, the step 4 is receive Paydex funding. We have multiple different ways that we can help with Paydex funding. There are collateral loans, there are SBA loans, a part of our program, there are equipment loans, there's payroll loans, there's DSCR loans if you're a real estate investor and looking for a cash out refinance. What's that look like? How is that going to help you? And so now we have funding opportunities or what we call lending support to help guide you in what other areas could you get more additional capital, right? Maybe it's a line of credit for your business as a tier 4. So now we can extend the lines of credit. So now to, James's point, next thing you know, you have $1 million, $2, $3, $4 million in capital that you can now leverage for investments or, employee expenses or growth of your company, so on and so forth. So 4-step process: establish, build, shift, and receive. I hope that answers your question there, James.
Donovan, that's great because one, I tell everyone at the minimum, everyone should have an LLC for themselves and for real estate, especially with your clients. And you guys, I'll tell you, I shop around. You guys have the best service selling LLC. I know it's like the candy, it's the teaser, but it's a great teaser to win the business, which I know you've been doing phenomenal because I have testimonials from our people at Renaissance, Top Agent Nation, and others, and I do shop around, look around. So really good service with the LLC, really good service of setting up the write-offs, and then really building on the corporate credit. Because I know I hate to say going through different recessions, use it, lose it, they drop it down. You sometimes just pull the money out before they adjust your credit lines depending on market cycle. But it's all very, very useful. And like many things, you need to build it. Even though you don't use it right now, you keep building it up. And it does help you. And for those that love to travel, right, and get credit card points, man, you can get millions of points. So Donovan, maybe you can share some funny stories of extra things because of this, doing this right. I mean, for me, it was making millions of points. I have traveled for free everywhere during that time. I really flowed a lot of money through my accounts. It
Yeah,
added.
absolutely. I mean, that's just a perk of building business credit, right? If you're putting everything on your business, remember, your business is probably going to spend more than you spend. One of the biggest bills you pay on a year by year basis is your tax bill and the expenses that come out. So there's a lot of room for gaining points. I even myself, I pay my taxes on my credit card as well. There's a 3% hit, but I know the points that it's giving me for me to travel, because I like to travel as well, are huge. So, and you sign up for these credit cards like the Amex Delta Platinum Plus or Platinum card or whatever. I think it's like a 300,000 points that you get when you spend $15,000 on the card in the first 6 months. Well, that's huge. Maybe you in the 6 months you bust butt, you go do something and you reward yourself with a nice free trip and hotel because the points cover it. So it's fun. It's fun to do stuff like that. And then obviously that's just a big perk of doing it the right way. But again, it's nice to know when you put those expenses on your credit that if you look up your personal credit profile report, it's not reporting. And with Dun and Bradstreet, another key benefit that I haven't mentioned yet is that you can eventually get to what's called a no PG, no personal guarantor, which means that you're completely separated from the business. If the business goes down, you are not going down with it because you've now completed all of the aspects you needed to make sure that you have the financial separation that's going to protect you and your business as well.
I love all this stuff. And that's what I had to separating different LLCs, different corporations, holding companies. Very important. Any other questions for Donovan? We will go deeper into each section in time because I do know each one is very important for people to understand. But for me, I like that you broke it down, Donovan. The LLC, the different write-offs, writing off your kids. It's just most of the time we just don't know it, don't understand it, too complicated. It's better, to just pay you guys to do it, show us, and set everything up right. Because I already know from the people I send over what you save from them already paid for your cost. I mean, you want to share a little and then share your information. I would say for anyone listening or watching, it's worth a consultation. And at the worst, just use their LLCs to set up. I hope you give them business, but the LLCs are great. And I know I always say helping your clients helps you because a lot of times they don't know about this. And for the amount you charge, I remember when I started getting people the same attorneys and groups that did Regal Cinema, one of my very big clients. And boy, I think it cost them like over $100,000 plus to set it. And then every year, depending on tax codes and changes, they had to modify and adjust. But they had so many assets, it was just overwhelming. So maybe
Absolutely.
Donovan, yeah, final words to share, and then if you can share your information or if you want to share your slide again so people can reach out, I do recommend everyone to take that 1 hour free and talk.
Absolutely. I mean, for us and where it's at, it's on average with people that invest a smart way, in your first year, you can save on average about $9,000 in taxes. Um, all of the investments in legal formation and structuring and business credit development and tax services is all a write-off for your company. I call it the golden triangle. You need three elements to your business: legal, financial, tax. That completes you as a business owner nonetheless. And so if you can start working on all three of those things, delegate to a team that can help you in what for most people is the most difficult and overwhelming piece of the puzzle, then at least you have safety and confidence knowing that you're doing things the right way. You focus on making money, you delegate to a team that has your back in these other aspects to really expedite the growth, and know that you have a resource to ask questions to. On average, our business owners are getting up to about $25,000 in their first year. Again, this is on average, so I can't say this is going to be every person, but again, a 25,000, if that's a possibility for you, how does that help your company? And if you have questions about this and how we can help, again, there's the free hour. Put it in the chat box with you guys here. It's a free 1 hour consultation. There's no obligation necessary. But to James's point, we've worked out phenomenal discounts with him specifically to make sure that you guys have the proper structure at a very reduced cost. So what we've done, typically our structures can be anywhere from, well, on average, working with an attorney, the structures can be $1,000 to $1,600. We bring it down to hard cost, 400 plus state fee. Every state's going to have a different fee. That's just part of the game. And then we also have phenomenal discounts in regards to taxes, estate planning, business development, depending on your level of service that you need. Right. So again, if you guys want to take the call, meet with our team, you find that we can provide value, right? If we can provide value, we can talk next steps and see if we're a good fit for you and your new business.
Donovan, thank you. And I'll just say anyone that actually makes money should have the talk because if you're making at least 50 or I'd say 100, but many people here make more than that, especially now in your company, you want to scale and build credit. I've worked on it, used it, didn't have as much knowledge in a team like you did, and that would have made it easier. So what I always like to do is share the tips and tricks and what I see, whether it's AI, social media, just different ways people are doing it. But it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And watching what you and your team has done, and I talk to a lot of people. Phenomenal. And I use some guinea pigs in myself. So I always say, it works. Make the call, help your clients. And that's the big one. I know for agents are all 1099. They just need to reduce their expenses on the write-offs. But many of our clients are investors. They have portfolios and assets. Like I said, one of my big ones, I mean, it was in the hundreds of millions. I would even say one of the big ones, over $1 billion in real estate assets. So, I mean, you got a lot of lawyers and everything, but I'd say for what you guys do really well is around the 10 million and below, and also the I would say 10 to 20. So that's pretty good, with many people's clients and the portfolio. But reach out. So I would just say, Donovan, thanks again. Thanks for Prime. I do look forward to seeing you in Park City, Utah, with the rest of the team. So everyone, thanks again for joining Top Agent Nation Commercial Wednesdays. Reach out if you have any topics or any subjects you'd like us to cover. But I do recommend, if you do business and you have some good clients with good network, they better talk to Prime to I would save a little, but not maybe a lot of money from how they're doing things, but protect themselves from liability. Everyone, thanks so
Awesome.
much. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, James.
Bye. Thank you.
Care.